Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a highly anticipated video on how to build and fix the real grade Sinanju. For this build I used Tamiya Accent Color Black for panel lining, I used Mr. Mark Softener for decals, I used Mr. Mark Setter for decals, I used Zippo lighter fluid for panel lining cleanup, I used some Tamiya JX2 nippers for my main cut, and some Godhand Ultimate nippers to clean up the nubs, cotton buds for decals and panel line cleanup. For special supplies I use this Derby Car Supply putty weight, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's moldable weights in a putty form, so you can put it into small cracks and crevices of a kit. I'm going to be using this extreme power glue. We're going to be needing this for all the plating that we're going to use to brace the kit and make it stable. We'll be using tweezers for both the plating and creating the braces for the kit. We're going to be using an X-Acto hobby knife, pretty standard. I will be using joint guard, but this is only for the shoulders and could be ignored if you wanted to. The Sinanju's greatest weakness is its reuse of the Advanced Mobile Suit Joint 5 from the Gundam Mark II. The Sinanju stands 22 meters tall, whereas the Gundam Mark II is 18 meters tall. Reusing AMSJ5 introduces a lot of slop into the waist of the Sinanju and is the primary problem with this kit. Today we're going to fix that using as little resources as possible. With some glue, it's entirely possible to fix this kit out of the box while maintaining its articulation. Since the Advanced Mobile Suit Joint doesn't get panel lined, we'll clip that out and store it for later. For the remaining parts, we'll panel line and clean up all parts on the runner to avoid pooling and cracking on these parts. If you're nervous about this step, you can gloss coat the runners first. You can also panel line the kit however you're comfortable. You don't have to use Tamiya. This is just what works best for me and is ingrained into my Joe workflow, or so I call it. If you use Tamiya, always use it on the runners before assembly. Lots of cracking happens with Tamiya when it's panel lined on an assembled model. This is caused by the liner pooling in an area that you can't clean up, leading the enamel thinner to eat your plastic, creating the notorious cracking. Next we will clean up the panel liner with Zippo lighter fluid. My method for this is to soak the cotton bud with lighter fluid and then let it dry out just a little bit so it's not sopping wet. I'll then lightly go over all the parts and clean up the Tamiya liner. The result is nice, crisp panel lines. There is the occasional panel line that isn't deep enough to carry the Tamiya, and may get cleaned up by the lighter fluid. We will handle touching up these panel lines after the parts have been cut out and the nubs have been removed. Next we will cut all the parts out of the 15 runners. I make my main cut at the gate with the Tamiya JX2 nippers. For my second cut I use the Godhand Ultimate nippers. I'll then use my fingernail to file any remaining nub after the second cut. Now that we have this pile of parts, it's time for the nub cleanup and the panel line touch-ups. Since we're building the Sinanju as out of the box as possible, I won't be prescribing any panel lines. Instead we will use a Pigma Micron .003 calligraphy pen to touch up these panel lines after cleanup. During cutout, I separated inner frame pieces from main armor pieces. I separated the parts by left leg, torso, waist, left arm, left foot, and right foot. We will be building the inner frame first, that way we can get a good idea of where the trouble areas are on the Sinanju. I personally don't like the foil stickers included with real grade kits at all, and will be using a metallic silver Sharpie to color these areas in. I generally like building the inner frame first anyways for a couple different reasons. Like with the Sinanju, we can see if there's any flaws we can fix before adding the armor. This is also a great time to add dry brushing and weathering to give your mech that more lived-in feel. It also really gives off that vibe that you're building a mech and gives those interior mechanical details the chance to shine when usually they're covered up by the armor. Now that the inner frame is completed, we can give it a small test to see where our problem areas might be. Right off the bat, we can see there's a lot of slop in the abdomen section. For this kit to already have a sloppy abdomen and it doesn't even have its armor or backpack on is concerning. The waist section is one of the primary issues with the Sinanju, so we're gonna have to fix that. What we're going to do is use some runner plate to create a brace for this middle ball joint in the waist. I'm going to use the A runner as a guide as this is already in a V shape and we want this V to brace the back and sides of this ball joint. I'm going to cut the A in half and trim the tang inside to make the A into the V. Once the A has been cut out, we'll trim the sides and do a test fit to make sure it fits where we need it to fit. The V should look similar to this. That way it braces both sides and the back of the abdomen. We can see that this V has already removed a lot of slop out of the abdomen, but we still need to do a little more. We will cut out another piece of runner plate and glue it to the bottom of this V so it can be supported by the lower abdomen piece that connects to the waist. First, let's glue the two runner plates together and give it some time to dry. Double check the rear armor connector can still slide in place with your brace in place. Once these are dry, we'll add a little bit of glue to the V, that way it adheres to the back of the abdomen, and now our back brace should be complete. Reassembling the frame, we can see that there's still some slop in the abdomen, but it's a little better now. Our next sloppy culprit is coming from the lower waist hinge joint. We're going to need to add a small brace to the back of the AMSJ waist joint. That way it doesn't bend the waist hinge backwards once the backpack has been added to the kit. I used a yellow runner piece to illustrate where we need to place our new brace. This will take a little bit of slop out of this waist hinge joint. We will clip a small gray piece of runner plate. It needs to be small as it needs to fit perfectly in that gap on the hinge joint connector. We will then glue it in place and butt it behind the tangs of the AMSJ waist joint. Let's do another test fit and make sure the braces are doing their job. With this brace here, we should still get side-to-side articulation from the waist, maintaining the kit's original engineered intentions, while mostly also removing the backwards lean from this sloppy joint. Despite all the other bracing, the kit is still going to want to lean backwards a little bit once the backpack has been added, so we're going to add some runner plate to the forward abdomen crunch. We will still be using a small piece of runner plate and we will glue it on one side. That way the joint in the back will still articulate. We don't want to glue that shut completely. For this I used a runner piece from part 20. I placed my nippers parallel with the 20 and cut the little bit of the runner plate off. This should be enough for our final brace. I glued this runner piece to one side and did a small mock-up test to make sure the brace is running evenly across. I didn't assemble anything, I just held it all close enough to align the brace and make sure everything was parallel. It should look similar to this once your brace is in place. Once the glue has dried on our part, we will reassemble the whole waist section. I added joint guard to the shoulders to help with the weight of the rifle and the shield. This is optional, but does help the outer shoulder joint handle the weight of the weapons better. On one of my final tests, after final assembly, I noticed the ankle joint has 3 parts of leaning articulation. My Sinanju was leaning backwards directly on this ankle joint. To stabilize the ankle, we will create another 2-part runner plate brace. It should slot in directly behind the piston connector and reach to the bottom of the ankle. Do a test fit to make sure it fits correctly and is the right length. We will then glue it in place. We will then take a small runner piece and slot it into the small gap between the ankle and the larger runner plate. This will add more stability to our brace. Once it's been test fit, add some glue and glue it all in place. It should look something like this. Once the glue dries, give it a small tug and make sure it's stable. And you should be all set with the ankles. We're going to use that silver Sharpie again to fill in these panels on the shoulder armor. That way there's some better coloring in there once you open the hatch. Ideally, I'd like to paint all these areas separately, but since we're doing this build on a budget, the Sharpie will suffice. The rest of the assembly is business as usual until we hit the feet. We'll do one last modification there as we assemble those parts. We've made it to the feet. This is where we're going to be using the tungsten metal putty to add weight to the feet and keep the Sinanju standing. The black portion of the foot has a neat little pocket of dead space, so let's fill that section with some weight. We will add this to both feet. We will also add some weight to the dead space of the toe. Use your tweezers to pack the weight as deep into the toe as possible. Repeat this process for the other foot and then just assemble as you normally would. This weight is a hidden gem and really helpful for back heavy kits. I'd honestly recommend all builders keep some on hand, and it can go a long way. This is about the 6th or 7th kit I've used this putty on. With the foot fully assembled, we still have some dead space to add more weight, so pull a little bit more putty and pack it into the front of the foot. Don't go overboard so you can't get the ankle joint in there, but add just enough so there's a bit more weight. Use your tweezers to pack it in as much as possible. With the kit mostly assembled, let's do a pose test and make sure our fixes worked. Setting the Sinanju up on one foot is a little tricky with the added articulation, but it is possible. And look at that, it's holding this pose and it's stable. I don't think another out-of-the-box Sinanju would be able to pull this off, as the backpack would pull this torso backwards, moving the center of gravity back, toppling the kit over, and making it fall backwards. We will finish assembling the head and accessories, but there may still be a few areas you're going to want to glue before we can call this mobile suit fixed. The kneecap likes to pop off, so let's add a tiny bit of glue to keep this on the frame. Be light with this glue as this piece fits directly onto the advanced mobile suit joint, and you don't want to glue this pre-molded frame shut anywhere. Be sure to keep the knee bent in this position until the glue fully dries. Another section that would benefit from some glue would be the sleeves cufflinks. These pieces are pressure fit onto the end of the arms of the advanced mobile suit joint and like to pop off with the weight of the weapons, so I'll add a dab of glue here to keep these on the arm frame. The final section I'll add glue to is for the shield connector on the arm. The shield to shoulder connection is really finicky, so I generally don't use it. To add stability to this part, I'm going to glue the shield connector to the forearm armor. This is optional, as I know some of you may like to keep this posed without the shield connector on the forearm. I added just a bit of glue to the rim of the connector to keep it adhered to the arm without overspilling onto the actual armor itself. For this build, you could use the inbox real grade stickers, but on a design this gorgeous, I wanted to go the extra mile, so I'll be using G Rework Waterslide decals. For these decals, I'm going to soak them in water for 5 seconds and pat them dry. I'll then take the decal off the transfer paper with my tweezers, and then run the decal over Mr. Mark Setter and pat the decal dry once it's on the piece with a cotton bud. Once I have a whole limb decaled, I'll take Mr. Mark Softener and run it over the decals, really setting them in place. Then I'll run over those decals again with another cotton bud. I used the decal scheme from the G Rework website for the Sinanju, and I think it came out pretty good. Once the decals are dried, it's time to put them onto their painting sticks and get them ready for the final step, clear coating. Before I clear, I want to make sure all the pieces are covered, so if a hatch can open, I'll make sure it's open so it can be clear coated. I'll also articulate the kit, so if there's any armor separation gimmicks, those pieces are coated as well. Usually I would mask joint pegs, but because the Sinanju needs a bit of stiffening up anyways, I left these joints open to the clear so it can add some light resistance to the joints and stiffen them up. Today I'll be clear coating with Mr. Super Matte Clear. The Sinanju does already come with a high gloss injection, and a lot of builders like to gloss coat this design in particular, and I don't blame them, it's a gorgeous mobile suit. But for this build I'm going to be matte clearing it. It all boils down to personal preference, and I think a matte cleared Sinanju is a bit underrated. Hopefully this video will quell your curiosity if you've ever wanted to see a matte Sinanju, but didn't want to take the risk of doing it yourself. Now that the matte clear has finished drying, we will assemble the Sinanju for the final time, and our fix of the real grade Sinanju will be completed. So here we have our completed real grade Sinanju in its matte glory. If it looks a little washed out or a little orangey, it's just from all the studio lighting. I promise you it's still red, but the studio lighting, once it hits a matte finish, sometimes likes to wash it out. Now I took the arms off just to give you a better perspective, but here is the Sinanju in its glory, and it's standing nice and straight. It's not doing a smooth criminal where the feet are tucked inwards and leaning forwards. It's not leaning backwards. Now I'm going to take my hand here and I'm going to wiggle on the back of the backpack here. Solid. It's standing nice and solid. Taking a look at this side profile, it doesn't even look hunched over, so all that bracing in there, really all that did was just center the torso of the kit and keep it stable with this heavy backpack, which typically likes to wear out the joint in the upper thigh, as well as the 2 or 3 swivels that are even built into the abdomen. So this right here is my 5-year-old Sinanju, and as we can see, the legs are kicked backwards, and the chest is kind of looking upwards. That's because there's like 3 or 4 different points of articulation in the abdomen itself. And the legs are also a little loose and not handling the weight of this backpack. So let's try to stand it up naturally, nice and naturally straight like we did with the one that we just built, and it topples over. And we can see that small adjustment right there, that was in the lower portion of the ankle. This pose was looking good, but as you can see over time, it just wants to lean backwards. And that's why this kit, even if it's on a stand, so if you have the waist centered on the stand, your Sinanju is still going to be looking upwards on a stand. So you're going to have to angle your stand downwards to try and make the pose look natural. Unfortunately, just the weight of this kit on those ankles makes it very loose. Now let's double check this with our newly fixed Sinanju. This is the new Sinanju. And it's solid. It's solid, and a lot of this is because of the weight. That's why it's able to handle this standing upright pose, is because of the weight in the feet. It's keeping it there on the mat. Now I'm sure you've noticed the abdomen seems a little wobbly left to right, and that's because I left the rotation in there so then we can lean left to right, because that's in the original spirit of this kit's design. You could very well take your runner plate and some glue and tighten this all up so it doesn't move at all, and it's super solid. Now that these kits are side by side, let's try the standing upright test on the old one. It's a nearly identical pose, and we can just see this one start to lean backwards. That's because the torso has this weight back here, the torso starts to fall back, and then it brings the legs down with it. Now, building the Sinanju isn't a terribly difficult deal. Everything we saw today was pretty easy. You just need some glue and some nippers, and you're able to take the Sinanju, this beautiful real grade Sinanju, and make a nice, solid, dependable kit that's able to pose. So here's our new built Sinanju. It's doing a one-legged kick. It's very topsy-turvy down here because of the AMSJ ball joint in the foot. I will mention that. But as of right now, it's nice and solid. We'll put that off to the side while we try on this older one. So the other one is in a very identical pose. I can't get it to settle because the ankle joint on the inside is making it too topsy-turvy. We also got that backwards lean, and the leg is also fairly loose. Mind you, I don't really pose my kits a lot. So we can get it into a similar pose, but we do have to brace the foot down here, and it is hunched forward a little bit, but even though the most minor of touches sets it off from being stable. So what do you think? Did we fix this very flawed but very gorgeous kit? I'm inclined to think that we did a decent job and it was relatively cheap. Every builder should have glue on hand, so really we spent about $6 to get some tungsten weight to fix the Sinanju up. Granted, you could fix the Sinanju by getting an Action Base 7, and that's going to hold even an old floppy dinosaur like this one, no problem whatsoever. But if you wanted a Sinanju that's able to pose and stand by itself without the help of a stand, I think we did a pretty decent job here. You very well could take some glue and just glue that whole waist section completely shut.
but I wanted to maintain some of that original left to right leaning articulation into the kit for kind of like poses like this where you can kind of lean into that kick. I'm very, very happy with how this came out. If you don't like the matte coating, then maybe go for a gloss coat yourself. That's going to do it for fixing the real grade Sinanju. I hope you found this video informative. This video took me a long time to create, just to film, edit, voice, and make sure everything was accurate and that I got the right details. So I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was able to help you out and give you the confidence you needed to build a stable, solid, real grade Sinanju with no worries. One last thing before I end this video, I want to give a huge shout out to my subscribers. I can't thank you all enough. The likes, comments, and subscriptions mean the world to me, and it makes videos like this one possible. Until the next video, be sure to stay safe, have fun, and happy building.